Hello everybody and welcome to the Zendikar Rising deck review. Today I'm going to be going over 7 different decks that I have put together for the early access event sponsored by Wizards of the Coast that I will be taking part of on Wednesday, September 16th. I will be streaming it from right around 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m., 9:30 p.m. Eastern, depending on when everything happens for me. But huge thank you for Wizards for letting me be a part of this again. It's always awesome. This is one of my favorite things to do as a content creator just because I enjoy deck building. I enjoy trying to figure out new decks and new fun things and new toys to play with. And, spoiler season is like Christmas to me. So, thanks again to Wizards for letting me be a part of that. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the decks. Now, right off the bat, I wanted to see just how far we could push the land count and still have, consistent mana, consistent land drops. And what you'll notice about this one is technically I only have 18 lands, right? So as far as actual lands, I have 18. But I have, 2 Shatterskull Smashing modal land on the back. I have 4 Tangled Florahedron. Yeah, Florahedron land on the back. I have the Call to Emeria land on the back. So I think, the Shatterskull Smashing land on the back. So while there's only actual 18 lands, I have 18 or 28 mana sources. So I'm seeing just how far we can push this and it still be viable. So this is going to be one of the more extreme ones with only 18 actual lands in the deck. But I feel like having all these extras will help out a lot. So with having all of this extra mana, well, things like Azusa, you can still play these as lands with your extra land drops. Uro, you can put them into the battlefield with extra. Genesis Ultimatum, you can put them on the battlefield as a creature or a permanent or as a land, however you want to do that. So Escape to the Wild, same thing. You can play it as a land, as an extra land or whatever. So, you're keeping that land count really high, but you also have a lot of spells that double as your lands, like the Emeria's call to Emeria, I think it is. It doesn't have the actual language on here, but so you make 2 4/4 angels, all your non-angels become indestructible, or on the flip side, it's an untapped white source if you pay 3 or just a white land. You got your Tangled Florahedron. It's a 2-mana dork that taps for green, or it's a forest on the other side. The Shatterskull Smashing is one that I'm kind of excited for. You'll see this one pop up quite a bit in these decks, but I just think it's a really good card. But it's X red sorcery, deal X damage divided as you choose among up to 2 target creatures and or planeswalkers. But if X is 6 or more, then Shatterskull Smashing deals twice X damage and divided as you choose among them instead. So late game, you draw this, you don't need any more lands, you're flooding out. You hit this for, 8 mana. You just get to do 16 damage spread out however you choose. And that's pretty powerful. Well, 16 damage to up to 2 creatures or planeswalkers. So pretty powerful. It's more than likely going to kill whatever they have. Then, this, like I said, I think it's 2 4/4 angels, and then all non-angels gain indestructible until end of turn. So, what are we going to do with all of these extra land drops? Well, we have Lotus Cobra, old favorite reprinted, something that people have been asking for a long time. But if you don't know, it's 2 mana 2/1. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, you may add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So you play this on turn 3, and you play this and a land, well, you're already generating possibly 2 mana if it's an untapped land. Pretty amazing. You got your Dryad gives an extra land drop. Azusa gives 2 extra land drops. Euro, of course, draw a card, extra land drop. Then the new big payoffs, at least to me, are Omnath, Locus of Creation. It says whenever Omnath, Locus of Creation enters the battlefield, draw a card. Cost red, green, white, and blue. So Omnath keeps adding colors, keeps getting more and more powerful. Maybe we'll see a 5-color Omnath one day. I don't know. But this one, red, green, white, blue for a 4/4. When it enters battlefield, draw a card. Now, it has Landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, gain 4 life if it's the first time this ability is resolved. If it's the second time, you add red, green, white, blue. And if it's the third time, you deal 4 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker that you don't control. What? So you get 3 extra land drops at a turn, which is not hard between your Zeus's, Dryads, Euros, Escape to the Wilds, Genesis Ultimatums. You get 4 mana. You deal 4 damage to everything on the battlefield that you don't control. Well, okay, so it doesn't deal to creatures. Sorry. So you deal 4 to them and each planeswalker they control. And you gain 4 life. That's pretty wild off of a 4-drop. You know, it's not really hard to get a bunch of extra land drops. Another card that I'm really excited for if you're playing extra lands is Felidar Retreat. Now, the last time they had a retreat cycle, and they were all fairly good. There's a couple that still are combo pieces in Modern and in EDH. But it's a 3 and a white enchantment. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, choose one. You get a 2/2 cat beast, or you put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control, and they all gain vigilance this turn. Okay. So if you're getting 3 extra land drops a turn, you can either put out 2 or 3 cats, or you can put out 2 cats and give all of your creatures +1/+1 counter. So you're actually putting out 2 3/3s and giving all your creatures vigilance plus whatever you already had on the battlefield. So, you know, pretty good way to abuse the extra land drops. However, the best way to abuse all of these land drops and to, you know, hyper ramp up to, like we're basically trying to do, is Morag, Fury of Akum. So this is a 6 mana 6/6 Minotaur Warrior legendary creature. Each creature you control gets +1/+0 for each time it's attacked this turn. And that's weird, right? Why would it word that? Well, Landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, if it's your main phase, there's an additional combat phase after this phase. At the beginning of that combat, untap all creatures you control. So, you swing in. Let's say you already have Morag on the battlefield. You attack in with Morag and Omnath. Well, already Omnath is a 5/4, and this is a 7/6. Then, at your second main, you play, let's say, Uro. You put an extra land on the battlefield. Well, you get an extra attack. Now, you're attacking with an 8/6 and a 6/4. Like, that's wild. And that's only just with 1 extra land drop. If you can go like 4 land drops in a turn, you're taking 5 extra attacks. Like, what? That is just wild to me. This thing, I don't think it's going to be a problem because I do think it costs a lot of mana. They appropriately costed this, and I'm happy about it because this could be awful. This could be absolutely miserable. You can drop this thing down on turn 4 and then just be like, oh, well, here's 5 attacks and you're dead now. The other big payoff is Phylath World Sculptor. Now, this is basically Avenger of Zendikar, but it works a little different now. So this is a 6 mana 5/5 legendary creature elemental. When Phylath the World Sculptor enters the battlefield, create a 0/1 green plant token for each basic land you control, which is the big difference between Avenger of Zendikar and this. But Landfall, whenever a land enters battlefield under your control, put 4 1/1 counters on target plant you control. So You play this on, let's say you ramped this out on turn 5. You can play this and a land. Well, automatically, for 6 mana and a land drop, you've played a 5/5, a number of 0/1s, and you made one of those 0/1s a 4/5. Okay. Seems pretty amazing to me. Now, another really good thing, if you're looking for a bunch of extra land drops and powerful creatures, Genesis Ultimatum. You Genesis Ultimatum, you 5 things. You see Omnath, Phylath, 3 lands. Okay. You put all those lands onto the battlefield. You possibly get 4 or 3 different 3/5s. You get 4 mana. You deal 4 damage to the opponent, and each planeswalker they control gain 4 life. And you have, and you draw a card, and you have just all this stuff going on. So I'm excited for this. Honestly, I kind of wanted to do this to see just how many attacks I can get in one turn. So I'm kind of going to go for, I guess, a personal record there. Then as far as the actual lands, you have to have basics in here. So I have, 2, 4, 5, 6 of those. I mean, I don't think you need too many plants for this to take over a game. Then you got your temples, your Catcher Triomes, 2 of each of the pathways. I didn't really want to go to a full 4, but this takes care of most of the colors. Like, blue isn't exactly strong as far as like our mana cost and stuff like that. Really, it's just Euro, Omnath, and Genesis Ultimatum, which, yes, Ultimatum takes 3 blue, but we got all of our Triomes, we got our Temple Mystery, got an island, plus we have Dryad, so, and Lotus Cobra. So generating blue shouldn't be all that hard. Then, moving on to something else that I am really excited for. Now, this one doesn't push the mana quite as much. It's still a little low because there is a lot of high drops in here, but your hope is to never actually have to cast them. So this one is a Drana Reanimator built around Drana the Last Blood Chief, which reads 3 black, flying 4/4, legendary creature, vampire, cleric. When Drana the Last Blood Chief attacks, defending player chooses a non-legendary creature card in your graveyard. You return that card to the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it. The creature is a vampire in addition to its other types. Now, most of the time, there's not very powerful non-legendary creatures that you want to be generating more of. But lately, we have seen a pretty big spike of 5 mana 8/8 with Trample and Haste. 5 mana 6/6 with Vigilance, Reach, and Trample does things. 6 mana 6/5 that neg-2s your opponent or the entire board on your opponent's side, and makes them lose 2 life each time a creature dies. You have an 11/11 that you can cycle into the graveyard fairly easy. So there's a lot of things going on that you can just get back. And at the very worst, even if you're getting back a Landmark Visionary, you still get to draw a card, and you get to hopefully ramp next turn to do something else. Gilded Goose, even if you're getting that back, you're still getting some sort of value out of it. So now, while Drana has to attack to get these, which means none of these are attacking the turn they come out, that's okay because most of them generate some type of value. Like, if you go, say your curve is Liliana discarding a Massacre Worm, Drana, Clackbridge troll the turn after, give them all the goats, you go to combat, they even sacrifice a goat to tap the troll, that's fine. You attack with Drana, bring back Massacre Worm, they're at least taking 4, you're killing 2 of their creatures off, and that's if they have nothing else, and you get a 6/5 onto the battlefield. So I just think that this is actually a pretty viable strategy. You just gotta, figure out what exactly, if these are the right targets, if there's better targets out there, or what's going on with that. But we'll see. For Liliana, Waker of the Dead, which came out M21, one of my favorite cards. I think that's being very underplayed, which, I get a lot of decks are working off of the graveyard, so you don't exactly want to put stuff in their graveyard right now, but I think that might change. I also have 2 of the Nissa of Shadowed Bows. I'm not sure about this card. I think it has a lot of potential, but I also think it's definitely one of the weaker Nissas that's been printed, and that's fine. We've been through a long time of Nissa just taking over standard, so I'm okay if there's one that's less playable. But I still think it's a very good card. So it's 2 green and a black, which is new for Nissa. She's never had any black in her casting cost before, so maybe she's going to kind of like a darker side, or at least a Veraska way of thinking, but we'll see there. So 4 mana, starts with 4 loyalty, has Landfall. Now, when I first saw a static on a Planeswalker again, I got very scared because, as we just saw with War of the Spark, statics on Planeswalkers are terrifying. But this has, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a loyalty counter on Nissa. Okay, that's not overly aggressive. That's not something that is going to just completely bust the game wide open. That's fine. That's manageable. So, her +1 is untap target land you control. You may have it become a 3/3 elemental creature with haste and menace until end of turn. It's still a land. Now, that's good, because now the lands from Nissa are back to just being until end of turn and not just generating this massive board state. Also, a very good plus side is you don't have to make it a creature. In the past, when you activated a Nissa loyalty, you had to make it a creature. So, if you're having to plus and then board wipe, well, it feels pretty terrible. Now, you just untap the land, you can make it a 3/3 elemental with haste and menace, and then it's still a land. So it works out a lot better there, I think. And then, -5, you may put a creature card with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of lands you control onto the battlefield from your hand or graveyard, which is pretty awesome. And it gains 2 1/1 counters when it enters the battlefield. So, you go turn 4 Liliana, turn 5 Nissa, play your land, you can immediately minus. Well, maybe you're getting back Gargaroth. Maybe you're getting back Drana. Maybe, even if you're only at 4 lands because of the Gilded Goose, you can maybe get back a Landwar Visionary, whatever. It doesn't matter. And then late game, you can get back your Titanothrexes, your Massacre Worms, all kinds of, Clackbridge Troll, all kinds of stuff. So I think it's good. It's just not, broken. And that's fine. That's probably honestly something that we need. And then for this one, we have Agadeem's Awakening. It's X triple black, sorcery. Return from your graveyard to the battlefield any number of target creature cards that have a different mana cost of X or less each. So you do this for 5, which would cost 8 mana. You get a 5-drop, a 4-drop, a 3-drop, a 2-drop, a 0-drop, and a 1-drop, or 1-drop, 0-drop. So, so if you cast it for 6, super late game, you can get like Massacre Worm, Elder Gargaroth, Landwar Visionary, Gilded Goose. For 9 mana, you're, generating 6, 11, 14, 15 mana worth of creatures, and most with decent enter the battlefield triggers. Like, even if you go Worm, Clackbridge, Visionary Goose, then, well, you're automatically triggering this all at the same time, so they are losing 6 right off the bat from that. So I'm excited. I think this deck can be good. It just kind of depends on how much removal is going to be needed, of how the format shakes up. So we'll see how this one works out. Now, these next 3, I would say, are all fairly similar to being the same deck. They just have quite a different take on each version. Now, the first one that we're going to talk about is Mardu Party. This one is just straight up push his party as far as I could possibly take it. I believe the count is 10 warriors, 8 clerics, 8 wizards, and 8 rogues. So I tried to maximize each of them without really sacrificing a bunch of lands or anything like that. So as far as the clerics or the wizards go, there's 2 Draenith Magistrate, so 1 and a white, 1/3. Your opponents can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hand. Fantastic. 3-drop Ardent Electromancer. Human Wizard 3/2. When it enters the battlefield, add a red for each creature in your party. Now, what party is each creature can count for 1 of each of Cleric, Rogue, Warrior, or Wizard. So, if you have 2 Warriors, 2 Rogues, 2 Wizards, this will still only generate 3 mana, which is still not bad. You get your cost back. But it only counts 1 of each. It's just kind of like a check mark of, do you have a rogue? Do you have a wizard? Do you have a warrior? Do you have a cleric? So it just kind of goes into that. Got 4 of the Vampire Rogue Nighthawk Scavenger. This is another one that you'll see in a few different decks just because this card is wild. Like, Vampire Nighthawk was already a very playable card. This is Vampire Nighthawk, but better. So what this does is it's, of course, 3 mana it's a 1 black for a 1+ star/3. So it is always a 1/3. And then it gets its power is equal to 1 plus the different types of cards in your opponent's graveyard, which is very similar to Tarmogoyf. And I think there are 6 different types. It's 6 or 7. I think it's 6. So this could potentially be an 8/3 for 3 mana. And it has Flying, Death Touch, Lifelink. Like, that's good. That is really good. And, over the course of the game, most often you're going to have stuff in your opponent's graveyard. So, I mean, even having this thing as like a 4/3 for 3 with Flying, Death Touch, Lifelink, that's really good. And it's a rogue, so it helps out with all of that. Then we got our Squad Commander. It's a 3 and a white for a 3/3 core warrior. When it enters the battlefield, you create a 1/1 warrior creature token for each creature in your party. So, again, if you have a full party, then you're playing a 4/4 that makes 4 warriors. That's pretty good. That's, pretty strong value there. There's Thundering Spark Mage. It's a 3 and a red 2/2 wizard. When it enters the battlefield, deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker, where X is the number of creatures in your party. So it could be like a Flame Tongue Kavu just for creatures. So, but 4 mana, enter the battlefield, deal 4 to something. Even if it's only 2 to 3, most of the time that's going to be enough to kill something. Then we got Tazri, Beacon of Unity. He's 4 and a white, legendary creature, human warrior. He's 4/6, but he costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your party. So he could be a single white 4/6. It's like, that's good. That is, even a 3 mana 4/6 is really good. Then its ability is, it's either paying blue, black, red, or green, or 2 generic for each of those colors. So it's 4 or 8 mana, or any combination, however you do it. But you look at the top 6 cards of your library, you can reveal up to 2 cleric, rogue, warrior, wizard, and or ally cards from among them and put them into your hand. The rest on the bottom into the random order. Now, it's interesting that they put ally in there because there's not a ton of allies in this set, I don't think. But it's more because this is absolutely a commander card. And it now has all 5 colors in there, so you can build your ally, core ally, commander, rally deck, and be perfectly happy. But that's okay, because even in this deck, we can still just pay pay, it would be what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It'd be 6. So it could be 6 mana to look at the top 6, draw 2. That's not terrible, but it's mainly for commander. Then you have Thwart the Grave. It's 4 black, costs 1 less for each creature in your party. So again, can cost just black. Return target creature card and up to 1 target cleric, rogue, warrior, or wizard creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So in this type of deck, you are hopefully paying like 3 mana, even maybe 2 mana at the very best, to reanimate 2 creatures, which is very good. And it's going to hit 2 creatures no matter what in this deck, because there's nothing that is not one of the 4 creature types that make up the party. And then we have Zagras, Thief of Heartbeats. It's a 4 red and a black. Legendary Vampire Rogue, 4/4. Costs 1 less for each creature in your party. So again, red and a black for a 4/4. Flying, Death Touch, Haste. Other creatures you control have Death Touch. And then whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a planeswalker, destroy that planeswalker. Awesome. There needed to be more ways to handle planeswalkers, because honestly, my wife has been beating this in my head for years now, basically since she started playing. Planeswalkers can just take over a game and make it so unfun, because you have to now take care of this planeswalker before you can even get back to the game, all while your opponent still just gets to play. So you're stuck hoping for some sort of draw that can get rid of their planeswalker, then you can get back to playing the game. Well, this makes it to where, they don't have a flyer. Well, I'm just going to play this, hit your planeswalker, it dies, and also all my creatures have Death Touch now. So it makes blocking much worse. It makes killing planeswalkers so much easier to do, and it can be a 2 mana 4/4 flying Death Touch Haste. It's very similar to Questing Beast. So even if you get this to only cost 4 mana, if you only have 2 different creatures in your party, that's still good. It's still a 4 mana 4/4 flying Death Touch Haste. Awesome. Then the lands, I kind of maximized the pathways on this one. You want most of your lands to come in untapped, even though I know I do have 4 of the Triome and 3 of each of the red temples, but most of the time you're going to want your lands to come in untapped. Oh, and then, sorry, I guess I actually completely missed this. One of the awesome things about all of your creatures having Death Touch is Angel of Destiny. It's a 3 white, 2/6 Angel Cleric, flying double strike. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you and that player each gain that much life. Seems weird, I know, but at the beginning of your end step, if you have at least 15 more life than your starting life total, each player Angel of Destiny attacked this turn loses the game. Okay, well, you give your Angel of Destiny first strike Death Touch, then they're not really gonna ever want to block it, and if they don't, well, you gain 4 life, which is awesome. It gets you up to that 15 life total more, and you can just end up winning the game that way. And with your Nighthawk being hopefully a very large creature, then it gets pretty amazing. Oh, also something about Squad Commander that I missed, sorry. So not only do you get the 1/1 warrior for each creature in your party, at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you have a full party, which is one of each of the warrior, rogue, cleric, wizard, all of your creatures get +1/+0 and gain indestructible until end of turn. So have Angel of Destiny out with Squad Commander. Well, now she's attacking for 6 a turn. And yeah, seems pretty good to me. So that is the party version of the deck. The next one is just trying to rebuild Winota. This is kind of just similar to the Winota decks that we have now. The main difference is we no longer have Judith. We no longer have any of the amassed creatures or anything like that. So you kind of have to go a different route with it. So instead, I have 4 Satyr's Cunning, which is just a sorcery 1-drop, create a 1/1 Satyr that can't block, but you can escape to exile 2 other cards, pay 2 in a red, and play it from your graveyard. This is kind of replacing Grim Initiate. It's nowhere near as good, but, it'll get the job done. Got your 4 Selfless Saviors, and instead of the Lazotep Reaver, we have Discordant Piper. It's a 2-mana 2/1 that when it dies, you create an 0/1 goat. Again, not really the same, but, we don't have Raise the Alarm, we don't have Lazotep Reaver, we don't have Satyr's Cunning, so we're losing a lot of the token generators that were out there. But outside of that, we still have our 2 Generals Enforcers because we don't have as many legendary humans anymore. Really, it's just General Kudro, Winota, and Kenrith. The rest are non-legendary, so it doesn't protect as much. Still have our 4 Seasoned Hellblades, 3 Annex, and then I kind of glossed over it, but I went with General Kudro instead of 4 Generals Enforcers. It gives all your other humans +1/+1, and then whenever Kudro or another human enters battlefield, exile a target grave card from an opponent's graveyard. And then you can pay to sacrifice 2 humans to destroy a creature with power 4 or greater. It's mainly there for the buff. The exile can be nice too. 3 Basri's Lieutenants. Protection for multicolored, enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control, and then if Basri's Lieutenant or another creature you control dies, if it had a 1/1 counter on it, create a 2/2 Knight with Vigilance. So kind of board wipe protection there. And of course your 4 Winotas, 2 Kenrith the Return King, 2 Embercleave, and then 2 of Nahiri, Heir of the Ancients. It's one of the new Planeswalkers from the set. It's 2 red and a white for 4 loyalty. +1, create a 1/1 core warrior creature token. You may attach an equipment you control to it. We don't have really any equipments other than Embercleave, so the second part of that's not really going to matter too much, but getting a 1/1 warrior that helps trigger Winota is pretty nice. But the -2 is, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a warrior or equipment card from among them, then put it into your hand and put the rest on the bottom in a random order. So, helps you find your Winotas, helps you find your Embercleaves. It can even help find like Seasoned Hellblades if you need to. So, it's got some decent utility there. And then -3 is Nahiri deals damage to target creature or planeswalker equal to twice the amount of equipment you control. That's only ever going to deal 2, so it's not really anything too helpful for us, I guess. But mainly Nahiri will be there to find Winota or just make tokens to help trigger Winota late game. So that's that take on that. Now the third version of basically Boros aggro is Naya Warriors. This one's going all in on the warrior theme. Still have our Winota here, but I'll get to that here in a second. So Warriors is getting a lot of new buffs because of the party mechanic. So you have things like Kargan War Leader, 3 mana 3/3. Other warriors you control get +1/+1. Awesome. Kargan Intimidator. Cowards can't block warriors, which is absolutely awesome. I had to make this basically for the memes of the channel because, as my emote says and what I like to say, there are no cowards here. So when you can look at their creature, pay 1, and be like, oh, you're a coward, you can't block my creatures now. Awesome. So, as I said, the ability for this, cowards can't block warriors, but you can pay 1, generic, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. Kargan Intimidator gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Target creature becomes a coward until end of turn, or target creature gains trample until end of turn. So it's a 3/1, so you can pay 1 to make it a 4/2, or make it to where something can't block, and all of our creatures are warriors. So, you can take out their biggest threat and just force them to block with things that they don't want to block with, which is pretty awesome. Another new help to the warriors is Gomafada Vanguard. It's a 2 mana 2/2, so kind of just a vanilla bear, but When Gomafada Vanguard attacks, target creature an opponent controls with power less than or equal to the number of warriors you control can't block this turn. So, and it's not legendary. So if you have 4 of these on the battlefield and a Kargan Intimidator, pay 1 mana, have 5 things not block, you're probably going to kill them pretty quick if 5 of their creatures can't block. And this is just on attack. So, most things aren't going to be able to outvalue this, even if you have 2 on the battlefield and you have, 2 or 3 others. Well, now 2 4/4s or 5/5s can't block. That's awesome. So, as far as the other cards in here, we have Wildwood Tracker, which is one of our main reasons to go into green. But it's a 1 mana 1/1 elf warrior. When it attacks, if you control another non-human creature, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So, not super often, but most of the time you'll get away with making this a 2/2 attacking on turn 2, and that's pretty good. Or even if you put it into the Kargan War Leader, then it could potentially be a 3/3, but it's a cheap warrior and it's a non-human, which is relevant for Winota. Then we have, your 4 Seasoned Hollowblade. Then we have 4 Tajuru Paragon. It's a 2 mana 3/2, which is already good. Elf, but it's also a Cleric, Rogue, Warrior, and Wizard. So it kind of is a party filler, but it only counts as one of them, so it's not super busted. But it also has Kicker for 3. So when you cast this, you can pay the Kicker cost in addition to its actual cost. So it would be 5 mana total, but it would be 4 and a green. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, reveal the top 6 cards of your library. You can put a card that shares a creature type with it from among them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library and in a random order. So, late game, you kick it, you go find any other creature in your deck, you put it into your hand, and you're good to go. Maybe it's to refill or get another Winota, or maybe even you just need a War Leader to finish the game. There you go. Then we have Shatterskull Charger, which is a card that I'm actually pretty excited for. There's an old card called Scab Clan Berserker that it kind of reminds me of this, but it's 1 and a red for a 4/3 giant warrior trample haste with kicker 2. If Shatterskull Charger was kicked, it enters the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it. At the beginning of your end step, if Shatterskull Charger doesn't have a 1/1 counter on it, return it to its owner's hand. Now that's actually a pretty decent thing. If you remember Dash, it's pretty similar to that, only it works in the opposite direction. So 3 mana, 4/3 trample haste. So 3 mana, just get in there, attack for 4. Awesome. Then if you kick it, well, now it's a 5 mana, 5/4 trample haste that stays on the battlefield. Because if you don't kick it at your end step, it goes back to your hand. But that's really good. Those are really good stats, and it's very aggressive. And it's yet another trigger for Winota. And then we have 3 Nahiris in here. Again, just generates warriors each turn. And then you can minus to find your Winotas, your Shatterskulls, your War Leaders, what have you. And then again, also 2 Embercleave in there. So I'm excited for this. It's a bit more on the aggressive side. So I'm excited to see how this goes. Now, this next one is another one where we took that land count and put it pretty low to try and push it and see. So this one is basically Izzet spells, but I kind of built it as a Kiln Fiend style deck. And the reason that I say that is because Umara Mystic, it's 1 a blue and a red with a 1/3 flyer, Merfolk Wizard. But whenever you cast an instant, sorcery, or wizard spell, Umara Mystic gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Just about everything, actually everything else in this deck is an instant, sorcery, or wizard. So you can go, this on turn 3, and then turn 4, play like opt, or like opt Frantic Inventory Shock, and this thing gets +6/+0. And whatever else you're doing off of that. So it can get pretty big pretty fast. We have 4 opt, 4 shock, 4 deliberate, which is a 2 mana scry 2 draw card. Been 1 mana cards like this, but you know, it's perfectly fine to have it as a 2 drop and still be an instant speed. 4 frantic inventory. What else of our other spells? Oh, 4 of the Shatter Skull Smashing. Again, I think this card's just going to be fantastic, and the fact that it doubles up as a land is really good. So, you know, hopefully you can just kind of kill a bunch of things there, or it's just a land drop when you need it. And then as far as wizards, we have 4 Heartfire Immolator, so 2 mana 2/2 prowess. Pay a red, sacrifice Heartfire Immolator, deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker. With all of the spells and instants we have going on, spells that we have going on, it's pretty easy to get this up to a nice high power, and you can just kill off problem spells, or problem creatures, problem planeswalkers, stuff like that. We have Kaza Royal Chaser, so red and a blue for a 1/2 flying haste. But you can tap it. The next instant or sorcery spell you cast this turn costs X less, where X is the number of wizards you control as the ability resolves. So, makes your Shatter Skull Smashings cost a lot less, or it can just make, 1 mana Frantic Inventories, 1 mana Deliberates, what have you. But mainly I think it'll be there to make your Shatter Skull Smashing cost a lot less, which I think can be really cool. We have Magmatic Channeler, so 1 and a red for a 1/3, but as long as you have 4 or more instants and sorceries in your graveyard, it gets +3/+1, so it turns into a 2 mana 4/4. And then you can tap, discard a card, exile the top 2 cards of your library, then choose one of them. You may play that card this turn. So it's kind of card draw, but also you get to discard a card to put maybe a Frantic Inventory in the graveyard, and then the next time you cast it, well, now you automatically draw 2. Feels pretty good. We have 2 Gadwick the Wizened, X triple blue, draw X cards, and then whenever you cast a blue spell, tap target non-land permanent and opponent controls. Awesome. Then there's one that I've seen a lot of people on the fence about it. I personally think it's going to be a really good card, but it's 1 and a blue, Seagate Stormcaller, 1 and a blue for a 2/1 with kicker 4 blue. So I mean, yeah, with the kicker it costs 7, but when Seagate Stormcaller enters the battlefield, copy the next instant or sorcery spell with converted mana cost 2 or less you cast this turn when you cast it. And then if it was kicked, copy that spell twice instead, and you can choose new targets for the copies. So, I mean, turn 4, you play this on turn, you play this, and then you double shock, you double deliberate, you double frantic inventory for, we'll say 2, because there will only be 1 in the graveyard, but still 2 mana draw 4. And then if you're ever with just a bunch of extra mana, well then maybe you kick this for 7 and then frantic inventory to draw like 8 cards. Seems fine to me. So this one again is pushing the envelope on just how little lands you can get away with. So, but even though it only says 18, there's actually 22 in here, and our highest drop is a 3-drop anyway. So any extra lands are just drawing us cards or dealing extra damage with the Shatter Skull. And we have enough card draw that I don't think it'll end up being too much of a problem. I do have a full suite of the 4 Temple of Epiphany in here, just in case. I mean, it's better to fix the mana, and we also have 2 Castle Vantress. So we'll see how this goes. This is one I'm not sure about because there are so many ways to build this deck. There are so many different routes you can go to build this one specific deck. So we'll see. Now, last but not least, one that I'm both excited and terrified about, and that is Rogue Mill. Blue-black, mill your opponent while also beating them in the face with cheap, efficient creatures. I hope that this actually isn't all that good, because I don't want to play against this every time. I don't want to play against this on ladder for 32 matches in a row. But I digress. So, this one is rogue-themed. Rogue has gotten a major upgrade because of the party mechanic. Just about every creature had one of the 4 party mechanic, types in there. So Rogue got a lot. And since Rogue is an actual, or since Mill is an actual keyword, they associated Mill with Rogues, which they started with the Thieves Guild Enforcer. It's a 1 mana or 1 black flash 1/1 human rogue. When it enters the battlefield or another rogue enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent mills 2 cards. Then, as long as an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, she gets +2/+1 and has Death Touch. So, late game, a 1 mana 3/2 Death Touch that mills 2. And every time you play another rogue, mills 2. Pretty wild. Having 8 cards in the graveyard is not going to be hard at all anymore. Like, it's not even going to be close. And I'll get to that here in just a couple of cards. So our next creature, Zilliport Duelist, 1 mana, flash, 1/1. When it enters battlefield, up to 1 creature gets -2/-0. Its controller mills 2 cards. So you have Thieves Guild Enforcer and you play a or a Zilliport Duelist. Well, now all of a sudden they mill 4. So they've already milled 6 cards off of 2 mana. And you also get to nerf a creature a little bit. You got your Merfolk Secret Keeper. Not a rogue, but you have the sorcery adventure side of target opponent mills 4. Very good for us. So you can even go turn 1 Enforcer, turn 2 have them mill 4, play a Duelist. All of a sudden she's a 3/2. Sweet. On turn 2. Like, that's really good. And since we're milling a bunch of things, Drown on the Lock is going to be very good. But I only have it a 3 of because I want to make sure that we can just play a bunch of synergies and get the actual rogue mill going. But Drown on the Lock, blue and a black instant, counter target spell, converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in its controller's graveyard, or destroy a creature with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in its controller's graveyard. So, even on turn 1, you play this, they mill 2, they mill 2. Well, turn 2, you have Drana Lock up. You can counter any 2-drop. And if you're on the play, like, you're countering or killing everything that they play. Seems pretty awesome. Now, to the card that scares me the most. So, before this, there was a card called Glimpse the Unthinkable that was blue and a black. Target player mills 8 cards. That was really good. It still sees play. There's still modern mill decks that play that card. Well, now we have Maddening Cacophony. 1 and a blue, sorcery. Each opponent mills 8 cards. Now it only costs 1 and a blue. They took the black restriction out of it. Why? And it gets worse. It has Kicker for 3 and a blue. So for 6 mana, it'd be 4 blue. If this spell was kicked, instead, each opponent mills half their library rounded up. So late game, this turns into a Traumatize. But still, early game, automatically milled 8 cards. So there's your Thieves Guild Enforcer already buffed up. There's your Drown on the Lock now at counter or kill anything 8 or less. Really good. This is going to be pushing the mill archetype up by a lot. But we'll see. Then we have Soaring Thought Thief. It's a blue and a black 1/3 flash. So, there is also technically a rogue flash deck if you wanted to, because Thieves Guild Enforcer, Zilliport Duelist, Soaring Thought Thief, Cunning Nightbonder all have flash. Also Zareth, but we'll get to that. And Brazen Borrower, all have flash. So you could do that too. But I don't think it's as strong as it was. And I just really wanted to push the mill strategy. So, But, blue and a black, 1/3, flying flash. As long as an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, rogues you control get +1/+0. Then, whenever 1 or more rogues you control attack, each opponent mills 2 cards. So, already, it's cheap. It's a 2-drop. And if there's 8 cards in your opponent's library, then all of your rogues get buffed up by 1-0. And that's pretty powerful. I mean, turns Brazen Borrower into a 4-1, which at a 3-1, it's already a pretty powerful attacker. At a 4-1, that's really good. And then, of course, 4 Brazen Borrower, Petty Theft, 2 mana, return non-land permanent an opponent controls to its owner's hand, or you can flash it in as a 3-1 flyer that can only block flyers. So, really good. We have our Glasspool Mimic, 2 and a blue, Shapeshifter Rogue, for a 0/0, but it's a clone. You may have Glasspool Mimic enter the battlefield as a copy of a creature you control, except it's a Shapeshifter Rogue in addition to its other types. Mainly, this is going to be for copying stuff like the Thieves Guild Enforcer or Soaring Thought Thief or the Nighthawk Scavenger, maybe. So, getting your double triggers off of the Thieves Guild Enforcer, or getting all of your rogues +2/+0 now, or milling 4 every time a rogue attacks. And then it also doubles as a land. So that's why we're able to have that 20 lands, because technically we have 24. So, it's another thing that I'm trying to figure out how far exactly you can push it with these double spells plus lands. So we'll see how that goes. Then your 4 of Nighthawk Scavenger, still flying Death Touch haste, or flying Death Touch lifelink, and it's a rogue, so seems pretty good. Then you got 3 Rankle, just because Rankle's really good. It's a flying hasty rogue, and then if it hits a player, you choose one or all, however many you want to do, where each player discards a card, loses a life, draws a card, or sacrifices a creature. So it's a rogue, helps out with everything else that we're doing. And if you have the Soaring Thought Thief, it can be a 4/3, which is pretty powerful. Then we have 2 Zareth San the Trickster. So it's a 3 blue and a black for a 4/4 legendary merfolk rogue with flash. But he has 2 blue and a black, return an unblocked attacking rogue you control to its owner's hand, put Zareth San the Trickster from your hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. Very similar to Ninjutsu, but it's just on a rogue now, which is fine. But whenever Zareth San deals combat damage to a player, you may put target permanent card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So this whole time, you're milling them. You're getting all of their powerful stuff into the graveyard. Well, they don't have a flyer when you are attacking it with your Soaring Thought Thief. Well, now you can just pay 4 mana, flash in the old Zareth, hit him for 4, and just grab something out of their graveyard, which is awesome. Whatever is their most powerful thing. And since it's a permanent card, you can also put their lands onto the battlefield, or enchantments, planeswalkers, whatever. So very powerful. I think this might actually be bumped up to 3 by the time I start playing around with it, but we shall see. And then 3 Castle Locthwain and, same pathway lands, couple temples just to smooth it out, and then a full 4 Fabled Passage. So we will see how this goes. But that is all of the decks. Let me switch back over here. I'm very excited. I hope some of these decks will end up being the real deal, end up being something that is like a true meta deck, but we shall see. As I said before, if you want to come check me out, I will be on Twitch between 5 and 9 on Wednesday, September 16th. Thanks to Wizards of the Coast for sponsoring that for me and allowing me to be a part of these early access streams. I always love them. I'm always going to. I will always be a part of them as long as I can. And who knows? Maybe someday I will get a spoiler card of my own. But that's just a dream. We'll see. Hopefully. Do that for me, Wizards, would you? Anyway, come check me out on Wednesday. This YouTube video will be going up probably Tuesday morning. So by the time you see this, then the next day will be my stream. Just make sure to keep a check out on that. But I appreciate it. You all have a great night, and I'll see you next time.